Hey, Craig,
Yes, Rick.
can you see it okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, good. Thanks. You can hear someone munching.
Oh, what do you think, Bill and Barney? Shall we get started?
Sure, why not?
All right. Welcome, everybody. Glad to have you here for the TTAC meeting. Bill, do you want to start with just a welcome, and then we can do a real quick introduction? Everybody can, we'll call on folks to introduce themselves.
Sure. Welcome, everybody, new and continuing to the Telecommunication and Technology Advisory Committee to the Chancellor's Office. And thanks to Vice Chancellor Barney Gomez for helping set up the meeting with his staff. And we've got a interesting and compelling agenda with some important work to do. So, Cheryl, you want to go through the introductions?
Yeah, sure. Let's go ahead and do that. Hi, my name is Cheryl Aschenbach. I'm Secretary for the Academic Senate and an English faculty member at Lassen College, and I'm one of 5 Academic Senate representatives on the committee, and the others will introduce themselves as they go. But if you just tell us who you are, where you're from, and who you're representing, that'd be fantastic, and I'll kind of call and go down the list. I see LeBaron on the list.
Yes. Did you want me to go now?
Yeah, sure.
Sure. My name is Dr. LeBaron Woodyard. I'm the Dean in Academic Affairs with the California Community Colleges Chancellor's Office.
Fantastic. Thank you, Barney.
Barney Gomez, Vice Chancellor for Digital Innovation and Infrastructure Services at the Community College Chancellor's Office.
Thank you. Daryl?
Yes, hi, Daryl Lal, Information Security directly to Barney Gomez at Chancellor's Office, downtown Sacramento.
Perfect. Thank you. Gary?
Yeah, I'm Gary Bird. I'm with the Chancellor's Office and work with Barney.
Love your picture. Gary Mosier?
Yes, I'm Gary Moser. I'm Vice Chancellor at TCIO for Kern Community College District, and I'm representing CISLA.
Thank you. Greg?
I'm Greg Atkins, the Executive Director for Council of Chief Librarians.
Thank you. Michael?
Hello, I'm Michael Tuatasi, the Vice President of Student Affairs at Santa Monica College, and I'm representing the Chief Student Services Officers.
Thank you so much. Jim Kelly?
Hi, I'm Jim Kelly. I'm a consultant working with the TAP team at Chancellor's Office.
And TAP is Technical Assistance Providers, correct?
Yes.
Thank you. Rico?
Hi, my name is Rico Bianchi. I represent CCC Tech Connect, and we're part of the SIP grant.
Thank you. Robert?
Good morning, everyone. I am Robert Stewart. I am the biology faculty and the academic senate president at Los Angeles Southwest College, and currently the ASCCC Area C representative, and I represent the ASCCC on this committee.
Thank you, Robert. Stefan?
Hi, Stephen Heath with the TAP team over at the Chancellor's Office representing information security.
Thank you. Russell?
Good morning, Russell Grant. I'm a grant monitor at the Chancellor's Office. I work for Barney.
Fantastic. Alex?
Alex Jackal. I'm with the TAP team at the Chancellor's Office in charge of data governance and management.
Thank you. Brian?
Morning, Brian Miller. I'm VP of Communications and Technology at the Foundation for California Community Colleges, a non-voting member of TTAC, but good morning and thank you for allowing us to participate.
Well, thank you for joining us. Christine?
Hi, I'm Christine Ziegler. I work on the TAP team with Jim Kelly and David Kendall and Alex Jackal.
Perfect, thank you. Christopher?
Good morning, Christopher Anderson. I'm Director of Application Development and Network Support at the California Community Colleges, working for digital innovation infrastructure with Barney Gomez.
Good. Thanks, Christopher. Craig?
Hi, I'm Craig Rutan. I'm Physics Faculty and Academic Senate President at Santiago Canyon College, and I'm here representing the Academic Senate for California Community Colleges.
Cool, thanks. Hi, Craig.
Hi.
David?
I'm David Kendall, the AI TAP team lead. I work for Barney with Alex and all of the rest of the people on this call. So nice to see everybody.
Good to see you. DM Adler?
Hi, David Adler. I'm a data analyst for WED, and I am observing.
Cool, thank you. Don Lopez?
Don Lopez, I'm the Vice President of Instruction at Fresno City College, representing the Region 5 CIO.
Thank you. Elaine?
Hi, I'm Elaine Cole. I am a college researcher at Foothill College, and I'm here representing the RP group.
Thank you. Fred?
I'm Fred Rocha. I'm the Chief Information Technology Officer for Coast Colleges in Costa Mesa, California, and I'm here representing CISOA.
Thank you. Gian?
Hi, good morning. I'm Gian Gaetao, a student from Bakersfield College and the Legislative Affairs Director representing the Student Senate, the SSCCC.
Always good to have the students present. Thank you so much for joining us. Jennifer?
Jennifer Coleman. I am Director of Student Success Suite products at the Technology Center, and I'm here as a fly on the wall for now. And welcome, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. Joe?
Hi, good morning. I'm Joe Moreau. I'm the Vice Chancellor of Technology for the Foothill De Anza District, and I'm not entirely sure which hat I'm wearing today, but I serve as the executive sponsor of CVC OEI. I certainly have been involved with CISOA for a long time, and I'm one of the chief troublemakers in the 4CIS cohort.
Thank you. Troublemaker, you? Never. Lindsay?
Lindsay McHugh, Communications Manager at the Foundation. I'm scribing, and I also work on the EdTech portfolio for communications.
Thank you so much, especially for scribing. Appreciate it. Natasha?
Hi, Natasha Alvarez here, librarian at East Los Angeles College, and I'm representing ASCCC.
Thank you for joining us. Glad to have you as part of the group. Sean?
Hey everybody, I'm Sean Burke. I'm a consultant at the Technology Center at Butte College. I work for Tim Calhoun and I'm a fly on the wall. Thanks for letting me join.
You bet, thank you. Student Senate President, is that Stephen?
Yes, it is. Hi, thanks for having me. I'm Steve Doer, President of Student Senate for California Community Colleges, also a student at Reedley College, so it's great to see Fresno City on here, but unfortunately I have to go to work pretty soon, but I wanted to make sure Gian got plugged in with you guys, so thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. Susan?
Hi, Suzanne Joaquim. I am the Distance Ed Coordinator at Butte College and on the OER initiative for the Academic Senate, and I'm here representing the ASCCC.
Thank you, Suzanne. And then we also have Susan Chu.
Susan Chu, Vice Chancellor of Business Services at Foothill De Anza, and I'm representing CBOs.
Terrific. Tim Calhoun?
Good morning, I'm Tim Calhoun. I'm the Executive Director at the CCC Technology Center and the Chair for the System-Wide Architecture Committee.
Great, thank you. And then we also have Tim.
So my name is Tim Killingstead. I am employed by Cerritos College, doing 508 accessibility and other things. I am here as a representative of California Post-Secondary Educators for Disabilities.
Thank you, Tim. And Todd.
Good morning, Todd Hoig. I'm the Director of Management Information Systems Data at Chancellor's Office.
Great. there's anybody that I missed as we went through and names were bouncing around on the participant list, please speak up.
Cheryl, it's Deb Barker Garcia. I'm sorry, I was having a little technical difficulty. Thanks.
And tell us who you are.
Oh, Deb Barker Garcia. I represent Ed Services, and I work very closely with the TAP team, with Barney and Dave.
Good, thank you. And then I see JC on here now too.
Yes, hey, good morning, everybody. This is JC Sales, Executive Director of Program Development for the Foundation for California Community Colleges. I'm here representing College Buys. It's a system-wide purchasing and contracts program for the California Community Colleges. You use most of our contracts, so our focus is institutional effectiveness through cost savings, institutional priority, and resource conservation. So you might know us from contracts such as Microsoft, Adobe, Cisco, Okta, et cetera, et cetera. So I'm happy to be part of the conversation.
Good. Thank you, JC. And thanks for explaining College Buys so that everyone understands. We have lots of new members. And then Rick.
Hello, everyone. I'm Rick Snodgrass. I'm with the Tech Center, and I'm the person in the background that kind of put this all together.
Definitely appreciate your efforts, Rick. Thank you so much. All right. Anybody else that didn't get to introduce themselves yet? Fantastic. Barney, do you have any welcome messages?
I just want to say thank you to everybody for taking the time. I know it's at times we find it difficult to have these meetings, but I do appreciate everybody taking the time and their willingness to be to participate on these meetings. You know, in light of our circumstances and the synchronous mode that everybody's in, it's very much appreciated that everybody takes the time, because I know, even from my own perspective, that there's probably tons of Zoom meetings that everybody is continuously on. So thank you for being here today, and I appreciate everybody's willingness.
Thank you so much, Barney. I think at this point we can hand it over to you for the next item on the agenda, the TTAC goals and the Vision for Success alignment.
Yeah, so Rick, you want to hit the next slide, or is this the slide for this one right now?
Barney, we had that document that Gary is ready to show that has the alignments on it.
Okay, great. I'll first start off by you know, just introducing it, and then Alex and David have been working closely with me on this effort, so I'll turn it over to them. But ultimately, some of the workload that we're referencing here is you know, from a strategy point of view, the Chancellor's Office, specifically myself, I'm trying to keep us focused on an effort going forward that aligns to the Vision for Success, and some of that is around, you know, recognizing the goals and the commitments in the Vision for Success, how we build with the student in mind, fostering the use of data, etc. So on that note, part of today's discussion is to really try to keep us focused on what it is we're doing and how we're going to be, you know, aligning towards the Vision for Success. I think it's important that we continue down this path on what we're doing, how we're building with the student in mind, how we're fostering the use of data, how we're closing the equity gaps, using data, things of that nature. So I want us to basically make sure that we're going down this path. And so I'll let Alex I'll turn it over to Alex just for a few more minutes to kind of elaborate even further.
Thank you.
All right, great. Thanks, Barney. Hi, everyone. I think this represents, I think, three distinct drivers. One is there's a driver to have that came from the top, from the Chancellor's executive team, that every project, every committee, every task force needs to be aligned to the Vision for Success and the strategic goals of the Chancellor's Office. And as a result, this was a mapping that was done as a result of that effort. The second piece is there's also a strong interest in sort of resetting and reinvestigating how does the Chancellor's Office interface with the field. And TTAC is an obvious, is sort of the obvious lead place where for technology and data that capacity to meet with the leadership in the field is. And so therefore, we want to make sure that whatever the TTAC is sort of focused on, is working on, is aligned with, one, the Visions for Success, and two, any strategic planning that's going on at the Chancellor's Office. And the third thing I wanted to, and last thing I want to say before I dive into the details of this is that the intent is to map, but we understand that sometimes when you're dealing with tactical goals, like 1-year goals, mapping them to the commitments and goals and the vision for success can be a little, there's not always a very good grain of match all the time. And so sometimes you have to really look and think, okay, how does this represent that? Sometimes when we're talking about infrastructure kind of things, you have to really sort of think hard about, okay, how does this actually impact the student? How does this impact the goals and commitments as they're realized? And it's not always an easy one-to-one. So we're not saying these are the perfect matches. They're just the ones that after going through it a couple of times we came up with. And so, the first one was, is that investigate the viability and make recommendations on a system-wide ERP offering. And so with that, we aligned it with the goal 5, which is about equity, and goal 6, which is about reducing achievement gaps in students, and commitments 4, which is about using data for decision-making, and 6, which is to have action, have all of our, the 6th commitment, which is about having all of our activities be about taking action and innovating. And 7 is the partnership with the field, or it's having the Chancellor's Office really operate in partnership with the field. So I'm not going to go into, you guys have, many of us have very embedded in the vision for success. Identify acronyms. Yes. I just saw that pop up from Robert. If I see an acronym, I will attempt to, ERP. I'm trying, what acronym did I just use? ERP. So ERP, what we're talking about is with a system-wide ERP offering is taking the student information system that the community colleges are using, like a Colleague or a Banner or a PeopleSoft or a homegrown student information system, and then actually making a system-wide offering of that so that all the community colleges can use some kind of presumptively cloud-based system. And we're going to be talking about the details of that a little bit later in this meeting. So I'll leave it at that, but I will try to be smart about acronyms.
Just to comment on the acronym, it's Enterprise Resource Planning.
Oh yeah, sorry. Yes, and that's what the acronym stands for. Yes, the second one was to investigate and provide recommendations on a single sign-on, SaaS, which is to say software as a service solution for students, faculty, and administration for the California Community College system. And that we linked that to commitment 2, which is designing with students in mind, because that seemed to be that would be the most benefit for students to be able to actually have one single sign-on capacity to reach all of their services and functions. The third one was to act on the IT survey that was done last year to determine CC system needs. There was a survey, IT survey done, and we want to act on that. And so commitment 1, which is focus on students' goals. And then the fourth one was support system solutions to assist colleges in meeting the Board of Governor accessibility standards, especially for technology applications. And the goals that seem to match closest to that were the goal 5 of equity and commitment 2, which is designing with the students in mind. And number 5, advise the Chancellor's Office in the development of data governance standards, processes, and implementation. And commitment 4, the use of data for decision-making, and commitment 7 being in partnership with the field. That seemed to match that the most, and of course, my favorite. Number 6, support districts in meeting the system's cybersecurity standards and in upgrading local practices to meet needs identified in the system's cybersecurity survey. Again, use of data. Again, achieving goals and performance, commitment number 5, and commitment 6 for innovation. And I think we may be speaking about that. I don't know if we'll get to it, but I think we may be speaking to that later today as well. Now, number 7 was advise the Chancellor's Office in implementation of the Governor's longitudinal educational data and information system, which is also colloquially known as the California Data System or Cradle to Career. And the commitment 4, use of data for decision-making. Commitment 5, goals and performance, and commitment 6, innovation. By the way, I know you all can read, but we thought that actually reading out what we're thinking TTAC is committed to would be useful for us all to process it and then, be able to react to it. Number 8, provide advice and input from the field regarding technology-related system-level projects such as the California Virtual Courses, CVC, and CCC Apply, especially related to AB 705 implementation. Again, we align that to Commitment 4, the use of data, Commitment 5, goals and performance, and Commitment 6, innovation. Number 9 was support and assist the Chancellor's Office efforts to modernize technology applications like CCC Apply and the Chancellor's Office Curriculum Inventory, known as COKI. Commitment 4, use of data. Commitment 5, goals and performance. And Commitment 6, innovation. Now, inside of all of this, I think what we're looking for is, one, did we not make sure we didn't make any mistakes? Did we accurately reflect TTAC's understanding of what sort of the this year goals are? And 2, do people feel like that the commitments and goals we selected seem to be reasonable alignments to the vision for success? And then 3, any reaction to this or any thoughts or discussion on it?
Thank you, Alex. And so we do have a lot of new people on the committee, and so we also attached the charter. So if you haven't had a chance to take a look at that, that helps frame, the work that this committee and the recommendations that it makes to the Chancellor's Office. It tells a little bit more specifically, and then the goals now linking more direct work. I also wanted to point out a couple different times Goal 5 was referenced relative to equity. And again, for the new folks on the committee, in the past, we've often spoken of equity, not just in terms of students with this group, but in terms of institutions. Having equity across institutions, or else really as a system, we can't equitably serve students. And so a little bit different view of equity than especially for our faculty, we're so used to working in the classroom.
Carol, that's a great
student
point
service.
to clarify on equity. I think that'll help
I was going to
things in context.
That's a great comment. I was going to say the same thing. Great clarification, Cheryl.
You bet. Thank you. I think it's a really important thing to keep in mind, especially for those that are newer. But so for both experienced and new folks, what do you think of these goals? As Alex suggested, what kind of reactions do you have? Do the goals seem reasonable? Do the alignments with parts of the vision for success, whether goals or commitments, seem to make sense? Really
I think the goals look good, but in Goal 9, it specifically calls out CCC Apply and COKI, and I'm wondering if there are other systems that should be included, like MIS.
That's a great point, my friend. Those were only examples. Certainly MIS is certainly one of them, in terms of its architecture and what we are going to either look at or not look at. But we only referenced a few of them. But ultimately, yes, it does include, when we can, assuming we have a budget and we have the bandwidth. Right now, these are the kind of the things that are in play. Like COKI's been in play, CCC Apply has been a hot topic. So we're constantly looking at how we can streamline or fix or, put out releases related to CCC Apply. But ultimately, yeah, everything within the EdTech portfolio, what we do and how we do it, and that includes the submission piece for from the college's perspective. Things like that will ultimately be looked at over time.
So on reflection on these goals, this is Bill Scroggins. What about the current situation with being the entire system being so totally in a remote temporary instruction? Would it be appropriate to have a goal related to supporting online education and faculty and students transitioning to temporary remote instruction, and particularly looking at continuing supporting and responding to field needs in areas related to technology, such as the availability of technology solutions like internet access, computer technology, virtual solutions for faculty. And in addition, taking a look at the possible upgrades to Canvas that we learn from these experiences, and to confer Zoom and perhaps things like Otter AI for accessibility for online. There's two things that spur this. First is we need continuous improvement of these technology solutions to online, because we're going to be online all year. And secondly, it's a great learning opportunity and expansion opportunity for movement to effective online instruction.
Great point, Bill, and I agree. In fact, I'm glad JC's on the phone. We are constantly have been in contact with him. In fact, him and I are working on some memos about the continuation of online technology and what's either going to go forward or not go forward. There are some things that are going to be expiring at the end of this calendar year, and depending on what we have available to us from a resource perspective and financial resource perspective, we'll either continue to fund those from a system-wide perspective, or we will ultimately shift over into the College Buys effort program, which basically, as JC explained what the College Buys program does, it does allow us to basically exploit these contracts and solutions at a reduced cost. If JC wants to chime in on this, I'm happy to let him do so, but our goal is to continue to see what we can continue to keep going forward in light of our synchronous environment. In terms of internet and capability, yeah, we are moving forward. We're trying to move forward from a budget perspective with the Department of Finance on scenic and upgrades that do need to take place. Last week, I did have a conversation with our own budget folks internally with the Department of Finance and the Governor's Office around scenic and the importance of scenic and what they do. So, we're continuing to advocate going forward for everything that we have that's in play right now for our environment. JC, do you want to add anything to that?
Let's put that in as one of the goals.
Absolutely. I'm good with that.
Well, can I ask Cheryl and Bill and Barney what's the procedure for that? Are we just going to put that in the notes that we sort of want to add that and then review it next meeting, or what's the procedure for that? I'm just
number 10. Make number 10 be online education resources, and of course we have CDCs.
I'm comfortable with Barney and Alex, you and your staff aligning it with the vision for success. You did a great job with doing that.
Okay, great.
Yep. And of course, I neglected to mention CVC, our online education initiative. We're continuing to expand on that as well too. So there's been a lot of progress going forward with Foothill De Anza. In fact, Joe Moreau could probably speak to some of that as well too. But I'll yield to JC. I know he was going to comment on around what we're doing with College Buys.
Thanks, Barney. I just want to make it real quick. So we already have 57 colleges that have had a successful model through the CVC OEI. We have 59 others that don't currently participate in the overall initiative. So what we're going to do is support those 59 colleges in obtaining these essential online education resources. And so what we'll do is we'll work with the colleges directly and say, hey, if you're interested in participating, let us know which resources you need. Then we're going to aggregate that here in the foundation in Sacramento, and then we'll negotiate further with the vendor to lower the pricing further so that we could replicate the successes of CVC OEI, which bats for 57 colleges already. And that's to make sure there's parity in pricing and that the service level delivery is consistent across the state.
Would like to just put in a pitch for the added goal for the additional language. Also, perhaps explicitly call out issues of equity in the statement as well. I've been seeing in the chat, the digital divide and things of that nature. And I know that equity is a big part of the vision for success.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I don't want to get down in the weeds too far, but Barney, yourself and JC both, when are you guys going to get a 508 review done as part of the process for pulling in new programs?
That's a very good question. That's a very good question.
Hind end.
So Tim,
So go ahead, JC.
So all the vendors that we work with so far are required to meet Section 508 compliance. Where we found some shortcomings are the area of WCAG 2.0 AA standards, and we don't go into contract with them if they cannot meet that standard at all. Now, it doesn't mean that even if they meet it, that they've met full accessibility. I think we're still trying to work on that. I can't claim to be an accessibility expert, but the Statewide Technology Center has been very kind in providing us resources and supporting, how we continue to understand and how we require our vendors to participate and be more proactive in addressing accessibility issues with their tools. And I think you would be, if you don't mind me reaching out to you, I think you would be a great voice to have in that conversation as well.
I'd love to have that conversation. As I think others that have been on this committee for a while know, one of my problems right now is dealing with Adobe Sign as a standard, because they specifically say in their VPAT that they're not going to deal with people that are blind. And we either need to be putting pressure on them, or we need to find a different way of dealing with that.
Absolutely, I totally agree with you. And I think, we could assemble a conversation that we could go into it further with Adobe. We have been advocating for that we can't say we're going to leave a certain segment of population behind. As you know, the foundation is committed to equity as well. And so this has been part of our agenda over the past year and a half or so. And it's not just the Adobe Sign, right? It's all the other tools that are quote unquote creative that are part of the Adobe portfolio that we're also tackling with them, because the students are using them, right? For their creative courses. We want to make sure that there is a way, or at least a pathway right now, that they can commit to make sure that it is going to be fully accessible at some point.
I appreciate that.
I would agree. Let's loop him in on when we have these discussions, JC.
Okay, are we ready to move the agenda?
I think so.
I think so.
All right, let's go.
So I've heard that it's recommended that we have Alex, Barney, and staff work on integrating some of the input into a 10th goal and then aligning it as appropriate. Otherwise, are we as a committee comfortable accepting these goals? If you are, I'd say just get a thumbs up. I'll get a quick scan of cameras. Good, thanks everybody. Cool.
Thank you.
So we'll consider those our goals with the addition of the 10th. And as that gets crafted, let's just make a point of sending it out to everybody for a quick review before we consider it the final 10th.
Yeah, and the only other caveat I would make, Cheryl, is that sometimes, with these goals, and I want to increase our communication with the TTAC group, so it may require, we only meet 4 times a year, but as the other day when we were talking with Bill, I don't think you had the opportunity to join us, but I did mention that there may be times where we have to pull an ad hoc meeting together to basically discuss what may or may not be at on the plate point in time, and trying to move things forward. That's all I want to say.
Okay, absolutely. No, I think we'd appreciate that. All right, let's go ahead and move to the next item on the agenda, which is the DII strategy, digital innovation and is it infrastructure? What's DII?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, infrastructure. Yep.
Thank you. I blanked for a minute.
Yep. I know, it's a tongue twister.
All right, so I'll pass that over to you.
All right. Do we have a slide on this one?
Yeah, we have the next slide.
Rick, if we want to go to the next slide.
We there?
It's kind of this is kind of what we've been talking about, really, ultimately. Operational efficiency, business empowered technology, data-driven decisions, aligning to the vision for success, establish philosophy and culture drivers behind every work effort and outcome, enterprise maturity, serving the system. I mean, ultimately, our goal here is to make sure that we, as I said, we're aligning to the vision for success. with whatever endeavor we choose to go down with. And so I don't know how much more we could keep going into this one. I think we've covered quite a bit of it. So I think we can move on to the next slide. Unless there are any questions.
If anybody has questions, feel free to speak up or throw something into the chat and we'll address it.
Could you
Absolutely
include a principle that had to do with equity and accessibility?
Good point, and we'll add that in there, Bill. We'll definitely add that in. So on this particular slide, some of the key projects, we kind of alluded to them earlier. We got the curriculum inventory, which is still in play. The data lake and data warehouse. I know we've made a lot of progress with the data lake and data warehouse with the folks at the Tech Center and our folks here, especially with Tim and his team out there. So kudos to Jennifer, him, Lou, and Mark Cohen, the rest of the team around the data lake and the data warehouse. We have in terms of what we've put behind the data lake, in terms of accessing it through either the Jasper Business Intelligence tool or by way of ODBC or JDBC, we now have the MIS system behind this. So we've made quite a bit of progress. We're working on some governance. We have procedures already in place for internal requests. We already have a lot of the colleges that are already accessing this environment. So, our goal is to really, exploit this opportunity, this tool set, to be able to allow folks to basically retrieve data, especially from the research community, the RP group, the Institutional Research Board folks at the local level, to be able to use this system to pull data and define the elements that they're looking for and pull the data and run their reports. To some extent, it alleviates the demand on the MIS team for our team, Todd and his team in the local, at the Chancellor's Office system level, but it doesn't preclude us from being available for support and or escalation. All this does is helps to streamline the process going forward in terms of pulling data. Todd and his team are still going to be heavily involved and available with the data lake, data warehouse solution, and the evaluation of data, escalation purposes, if someone has a problem around the use of the data and how to get it out. So, but I think we've made quite a bit of progress around this. Our single sign-on is still in play. I'm still having discussions on how we can try to make this happen. I get that we're in a financial crunch and a financial crisis. Totally understand that. I mentioned data governance. We have a data governance committee in-house that we're trying to finalize in terms of what its mission, what its goal is. But we have now we have a research unit that's fully up and running now inside the Chancellor's office, and that's managed and chaired by Assistant Vice Chancellor Dr. Valerie Lundy Wagner. She's over the research unit, so she has herself, Atsuko, which everybody I'm sure remembers, and two other people now. One specifically coming on board as of Monday. So we are slowly building up the research unit within the Chancellor's office. We launched the document management tool solution inside the Chancellor's office a few weeks ago. We're finalizing our OCM effort, organizational change management effort around this, because part of what we want to do with OCM, iManage, is everybody may or may not know, document management is a way of storing and retrieving documents. We're moving a lot of that stuff from in-house to the cloud solution. But what we want to do is open up the link available for our constituents, for you folks, the user community out there, our colleges, our groups like this, where we can share documents easily without having to go through a bunch of hoops. And we can basically put these documents out there in a public-facing site, and knowing that they're secure, we can basically begin to share this information and collaborate much better than what we have been doing. We're still working on a common ERP, which we'll go into here shortly. I believe that's going to be probably one of a major topic that we're going to discuss here. So these are some of the key projects, again, that were all tied to the vision for success. Even with the super glue. Yeah, go ahead.
No, I didn't want to interrupt you, Barney. I thought you were finishing up. Please go ahead.
I'm about through there. I'm definitely about through. I was just going to comment on Superglue and what we're doing there with EdXchange, e-transcripts. You know, that is specifically the e-transcripts effort with the Cradle to Career, the longitudinal data system. You may or may not know, but e-transcripts was chosen as a tool that's going to be exploited by the longitudinal data system at the state level for purposes of transferring transcript data. Ourselves, along with CCGI, because they handle the K-12 component of it, and then from, you know, as of course, when a student matriculates from the K-12 system to our system, and then beyond our system, these tools between CCGI and what we have in play are going to be crucial. So a lot of things have been taking place, and a lot of things have been moving forward. Alex, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that when we looked at this list, like key projects, there's other projects going on in the in DII and in the Chancellor's office, and I think the goal is to, one of the things that we were asked to do last year is to really look at the enterprise, look at the whole system, and look at what are the projects and the needs that the entire system has. And so a lot of these projects are the ones where we're trying to standardize. One of the requests was to build a set of standards. And so we're trying to standardize on how some of these technological functions are done where it makes sense. Sometimes it doesn't make any sense, right, to standardize across the system. But where it does make sense, these are the projects that represent our efforts to do that and to create some kind of enterprise-wide standardization, and therefore makes these projects very right in TTAC's wheelhouse, if you will, right? And so that's where this key project list came from in terms of which things we picked. There are probably things we missed, right? There are other key projects that maybe should be here, and but I just wanted to say that was the background context behind what got these key projects mentioned. All right, thank you very much. And I think Tim, were you gonna say something?
Thanks,
yeah,
Alex.
sure. Just this piece, are we looking at using blockchain security as a basis for a lot of these projects?
Well, my take, Tim, would be that as appropriate. It really depends upon, you know, blockchain is a technology that's not necessarily a secure. I mean, it's not a general purpose security protocol. It's used for specific purposes. So if it was appropriate, we would use it.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that started to get into the systems.
Yeah.
Tim Calhoun, can you give us a little bit of a quick overview of data lake and data warehouse, particularly for those that are newer?
Yeah, just to sort of clarify that, what that means. So you know, we come from a background where we have lots of different projects, and all of those projects have data, and they're all in silos all over the place. So a key problem, especially in the modern in modern architecture, is how do you get all that data in one place, and so that people can even, you know, get to it, and researchers can get to it and begin to decide how they're going to use it. The traditional way to have done that in the past was, oh, we'll build a data warehouse, which means that we're going to take data that was in all of these different operational data stores. And when data is out there in that kind of environment, it's really structured to operate. It's structured to work how that application needs it to work, but not necessarily how a researcher needs it to be able to do research and to be able to do reporting and analytics and dashboards, et cetera. So the idea of a data lake is take all of your operational data just as it is, don't change it, don't do anything to it, just get it all in one place. And so we have a data lake currently using Amazon Web Services best practices for building a data lake, and all of our operational data is being copied into this data lake. So now it's all together. It's all in one place. So the idea is maybe then that a researcher could come into the data lake and say, well, I'd really like to be able to take CCC apply data, our pre-enrollment data. I'd like to be able to take our Canvas data, look at how students are engaging maybe in their first semester. And then I'd like to look at also our outcomes data, our data about from MIS, and I'd like to be able to see what are the factors where students may drop out in that first semester, right? So combining those data sources together into a researchable format is really what the data warehouse is all about. The data lake sort of contains the raw data, and the data warehouse is now a structured piece of data that's been assembled so that researchers can do research on a topic like why are students dropping out in their first semester. So I hope that might provide some clarity between the differences between the data lake and the data warehouse and what their functions are.
Thank you, Tim. I appreciate that. Anybody have any questions about that?
Yeah, I have a question. Where does the data mart or data mart version X fit into that conversation?
Yeah, so usually data marts are for a specific purpose. So let's say we actually did let's say in this example I gave earlier, researchers had done research. They figured out that there were specific indicators about students dropping out in the first semester, and then they might further create a data mart where users could then data marts are usually user facing, where users could get data out of the system or to understand like how many students were likely to drop out or something like that. So usually data marts are user facing and structured elements. So the tiers go, in my mind, from raw data in the data lake to structured data in the data warehouse, and then to user-facing data in a data mart.
Wouldn't that data mart be an important part of these three elements? If it's not user effective in decision making, we're not meeting one of our goals.
Yeah, I think that our project has been based around the first two steps here. I think data lake and data warehouse, simply because we've been in a situation where we've had all of this siloed data, and so I think in my mind, maybe we need to finish off getting organized and getting all the data into one place and begin to do research on the data so that we can then get to the data marts. So I think maybe that may be a future project of the data efforts, but it's certainly, yeah, I mean, you're right, it's definitely.
But if I can't get to data that I need to make decisions at my college based on the position my college stands with respect to the system, I'm going to have to wait 2 or 3 years to get a data mart back in functioning, and even without the report card has expired. So I really don't have any access to comparable data for the system at all, unless I go to my researcher, and they've got a lot of work to do as it stands.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree with you, Bill. It's a matter, for us, it's a matter of resources to be able to get things out there.
I will say, Bill, that I was going to say that this effort with the data lake, data warehouse, is going to be always organic. It's organic in nature because, like you pointed out, the data mart, it depends on where we see the need. We totally agree that if there's a data mart source that should be behind the data lake and integrated by way of the platform, the superglue platform, which is the integration piece that allows the communication to take place between the various sources, then absolutely. But I rest assured, it's not a done deal. We're going to constantly be evolving, hence the organic term. So we will constantly be evolving, making this better, streamlining the processes, et cetera.
So I got a question as well for Tim. Tim, are we going to be able to pull the data itself out of the data lake or data warehouse that you built to utilize in our environment and manipulate it the way we want to until your end product is resolved?
So so first of all, it's not a technical issue. So
right.
not my
I agree.
area.
It's not. Yeah. Yeah, just open the port and I'll pull
I
it.
would
Not
direct that to Vice Chancellor Gomez because, sorry to pass the buck, Barney, but I mean,
well, okay,
it's really not my decision as to who gets access to the data.
Yeah,
so, Gary, to answer that question, it's really around governance. We are very cognizant of the fact that who gets access and what. As Tim was referring to the data lake and the data warehouse, you're dealing with structured data versus unstructured data. You're also dealing with certain types of data that only certain people should only be able to see, hence the governance component of this. So if you, from your current district, you really shouldn't have a need to see anyone else's data that's going to be in there. So from a governance perspective, yes, we are locking that down and we are ensuring, and it's a very, very important piece for us, that as we move forward, we're making sure that the integrity of the data is kept intact.
Yeah, no, I agree with you, Barney. And for example, I'll pick on Bill. I wouldn't need to see data coming out of Mount SAC. That's not relevant. However, whatever data you have that's related to Kern, where I'm going with this is I'd like to be able to pull it and utilize it in the data warehouse that I have, and be able to use that in that format. And if the answer is yes, then when will that be available?
Agreed. Now, if Bill wants to allow you to have that data, then obviously
Bill's got enough FTE. We need to borrow some. Yeah.
I think Alex has a comment, and then Tim and Todd have hands up.
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that on the data governance side. Is I do appreciate what Tim said is very true. I think it's not a technical issue. The JASPER reports allow for you to download data sets down. You can look at your own data through that medium, but it's where the data lake and data warehouse have been hampered is that we haven't gotten a strict governance structure in place that has passed our Office of General Counsel review, and we're working on that, and that's going to be, I think, the priority for the Data Governance Council as we relaunch it this month. I think is to actually get all that done and get a data sharing and data access policy in place from the Chancellor's office, so that all these system-wide systems can have guidance on what kind of sharing is allowable and what kind of sharing works, at least as a guidance framework from the Chancellor's office.
No, thanks, folks. Appreciate it.
Okay. Todd?
Yeah, I just want to add on to that and say that right now the technology, the technical part is a lot further along than the governance part, and we really have to focus on that governance. We're dumping raw data into the data lake. It may or may not be, being formatted and structured into data warehouses, but the idea that anyone can just come and access that data and know what to do with it is really, that's not true. So I think we really have to focus on the governance and make that lead the technical side rather than just, we have the technical ability to do this now, so let's do it. That's not appropriate.
Great point. Thank you so much.
One more question. Is there a project associated with accessibility of external data, like K-12 transcripts, UI wage data, etc.?
I'm not sure I understand your question.
That is part of the, I'm sorry, Barney, I think I can answer that question. I think I get it. The question of data that is external data, like wage data, like K-12 data, like the stuff coming from CCGI, stuff like that. There's and the stuff coming from CDE. The governance structures we're looking at will incorporate both internal and external data, and the data lake will contain both external and internal data, and there's going to be different rules for some of that data, right? We're going to have different kinds of rules if you're trying to pull wage data out, for instance, right? Than if you were going to just try and pull CCC apply data or something like that.
And some of that data, if we're talking about wage data as an example, some of that data, there are already restrictions in place over our ability to share or make that data available outside of our current environment with the Chancellor's office. So we would have to go back.
We produce access for utilities like Launchboard that I presume is coordinated with that effort.
Correct.
Sorry, I didn't catch the first part.
Bill, one other item. There is a work group, an advisory work group that's helping with the data warehouse, and they are recommending, the things like that for the future, for the different data sets that are, things like EDD data and things like that.
Good. I see Gary's question in the chat. Is there a chance to answer that, or will it take us too far away from the idea for the presentation that you had?
I'm sorry, Cheryl, what was the question?
Gary had a question in the chat about sharing the list of resources that we're pulling data from and what the roadmap is for other sources. Is that close enough to the conversation you're having and the next slide to cover, or do you want to wait on that?
Oh no, absolutely. I mean, I don't know that we have it. I might be able to pull it up, or Alex can pull it up. We definitely have the topology and what it looks like and what's sitting behind the current infrastructure right now. So certainly, we're happy to share this information.
I'll work with Barney, and we have some documentation. We have a data set registry, for instance, that has all the data sets that are the source points for all these various systems. So I think that's a public document. I just can't on the fly. I can't actually think of why it wouldn't be. But I'll work with Barney and get something to Rick. Okay, on that.
That sounds good to me.
Perfect.
Gary, you good with that? All right, let's go.
Absolutely. Sorry.
Okay, thank you. All right, Barney, you guys can continue.
All right, I think next slide, please. I think we've covered this one well enough. How can the system provide technology use for the data student in mind?
So Barney, if I can say, this was generated out of a question I think it came from Bill Scroggins, and it is actually one of the fundamental issues of how do we contextualize the work that we're doing in the context of, because we really want to have everything be with the student in mind as much as possible, but sometimes it doesn't make sense. Sometimes you end up having RFPs responding to new toilets for a school and talking about the academic benefit to the student of the new toilets, and so, because that's what everyone expects to see in an RFP to a school, right? And so I think, but I think we do, however, always want to, when it's practical, possible, and makes sense, do that. And so I think that's the source of this question, is how can we frame these conversations about system-wide technology and data usage in a way that really connects back to our end goals, which is to actually improve the learning and the teaching of the students. I think that's, Bill, is that a fair contextualization of that?
It is. I don't want to get so involved with improving business practices that we fail to collect data on, for example, we have a tremendous effort on basic needs, but the data that supports that is limited. So, when the legislature and the world says we need to be strategic in supporting student needs, and when I get a new law that says I can use my lottery money to support student needs, I go, well, that's nice, but what the hell am I supposed to do? Where do I make that work? So there needs to be some sort of a responsiveness when we see student needs evolving and issues like that, where we can pivot. I know that we haven't been particularly good at pivoting, but I think we do need to keep our eyes on what the student issues are and be able to respond with some degree of timeliness and effort. And in fact, I think we need to be visionary about that and not just reactive.
That's a good point, Bill. And I think, you know, especially around the visionary component and the reactive aspect of things, I totally agree. We don't need to be reactive. We should be visionary and be out in front of these things and from a technology and with the use of data and the student in mind. And I think a perfect example of that is what we've done with the data lake and the data warehouse aspect of things. That's extremely visionary. It's pretty much in alignment with what CSUS has been doing, technology and how they're handling data, et cetera. So I think we're on our way, well on our way to, you know, addressing what you're referring to. And of course, again, I mentioned, and I use the term organic, it's always going to be organic. There's always going to be room for improvement, especially as technology improves. So.
Okay, that was it. That was the point.
Thank you, sir. Next slide, please. Updates, review, and feedback. I think we've kind of covered that one, I think. Unless anybody else has any.
No, I think, Barney, this leads into this is where we had a set of questions that came from Bill and from one comment from Cheryl and a couple other sources, and we started to put together a sort of a response to that. But then what we realized is it probably would make more sense, given timing wise and what we need advice and support from TTAC on, is to actually do as part of this process, do a sort of an update on where we are with the common ERP work that a bunch of the colleges have been doing. And so I don't know, we hadn't really organized well as to who was gonna walk us through these slides, but we have some slides. I don't know if Gary or Joe or who, I don't know who the right person is to spearhead this.
Well, Alex, I'll be happy to give it a go, and certainly would invite any of Barney and the TAP team or Gary and Fred to join in. But yeah, you ready to roll?
Give it a go, Joe. Give it a go.
Okay, so for the folks that are new to the committee or don't remember some of the stuff we did earlier this year, is that TTAC made a formal recommendation to Barney and the Chancellor's office that we begin to move towards the development of a common data platform, otherwise known as a common ERP offering. So as there's a group of us that are banner schools and another group developing around Colleague, the other Ellucian product, called the 4CIS, the California Community College Computer Information Systems Cohort. Right now, the banner group is Kern, Coast, Foothill, De Anza, Pasadena, and West Valley Mission, and the colleague group is in the process of being put together. I think that's going to be led by North Orange, I think, if I'm not mistaken. Anyway, as we've been looking at this over the last many months, you know, we really said, okay, there's kind of two major components to this from a system-wide perspective. One is, what is the cost to create such an offering, and what is the cost related to get the districts who want to take that offering to that offering? That's one cost component. So how do we create a system that can do that, and how do we get people to do that as they choose to? The second component is, how do we help districts and colleges and districts work through the change management piece of it? Because I mean, moving from what has for some districts has been many decades an on-prem locally maintained system to essentially a SaaS-based platform, that could represent potentially very large changes in business processes and in workflow and in you know, classification descriptions, a whole variety of things, and that is probably actually a bigger task than actually just getting people from system A to system B technically. So the 4CIS group reached out to Huron Consulting, and just real quick, why did we choose Huron? A couple of reasons. One is they're a big firm with a very sophisticated higher ed practice. They know the California community colleges really well because they're working with many of our districts already, particularly those districts that are using PeopleSoft. So we wanted to make sure that we had that perspective as part of the whole thing. They also are working for the Chancellor's Office already, doing some analysis around things like the California Community College Registry and other kinds of things that are some of the things that I think Barney included in the modernization goal that you saw earlier. So they bring a good and independent perspective that would be, I think, useful. So we said to them, well, how could we estimate the level of effort and the cost at a system level to transform 73 districts or 72 districts from wherever they are today to some new vision of ERP? And they really said, wow, that's an enormous task, and it would be really hard to put a price tag on there that was defensible. So they came back and they said, what we would propose is that we take a sample of districts and we look at that sample that would be representative of our system as a whole. So, and we'll talk about that in just a minute about what that sample might look like, and that we do an investigation or an assessment with that sample of districts or colleges and use that to extrapolate the cost to the entire system. That would give us a relatively good price estimate or cost estimate on the transformation effort. It would be defensible. It would be something that we could take the Department of Finance or the legislative analysts or whomever to say, this is a real number based on real research and data about how to do this. So they've put together a proposal. They've shared it with Barney and the TAP team and gotten some very specific feedback from them as to how to refine that proposal. They've done that. And I think before Barney is ready to take it to other leadership colleagues in the Chancellor's Office, because this came out of a recommendation from TTAC, he wanted to bring it back to TTAC to say, here's what, you asked us to do this, we went off and did it, and here's what we came up with, and what do you think, and is it ready to advance to the next level of conversation? So Barney, did I leave anything out there?
Spot on, my friend, spot on.
Okay, so let's dig into what Huron came back with. So I think if we can go to the next slide. So this is at a high level. This is the proposed scope that the assessment would undertake. So looking at business process alignment, opportunities for efficiency, focusing on all the components of ERP. So HR, finance, student. What areas have potential for the most agreement and as well as maybe the most disagreement? Are there other kinds of efficiencies that can be gained through utilizing a common platform? Are colleges ready to move to a shared platform? And probably the answer to that is some are more ready than others. And what does that continuum of readiness look like? And how would the change management task be different for different colleges and different districts, so that again, looking at this with the lens of institutional equity, how can we make sure that we've addressed the variance of need across our system, and then what would essentially a change management roadmap look like for our system? Knowing that there's going to be different levels of readiness, there are different levels of size and need and capacity and all those kinds of things. So we would come out of this with a relatively solid roadmap with a rational cost that's defensible for a proposal to the state for budgetary purposes. So that's kind of the general scope of what they've proposed. Of course, they have a lot more detail, but in their proposal. But for the sake of this discussion, that's kind of the high-level view. If we can go to the next slide. So this would be kind of the three phases, you know, that they would study the current state. They would study the current state, you know, in terms of everything from governance to readiness to process and system assessment and so on and so forth. They'd create a set of project milestones for the presentation of those current state observations, and then develop the change management strategy, roadmap, and budget. So those are the three real deliverables from an assessment of this sort, is that the Chancellor's Office team, led by Barney, would have in their hand a document that says, this is how we do change management across our system. This is what that roadmap could look like, and this is what we think it's reasonably going to cost. So,
Joe, have you given consideration to a return on investment? Because I think that's going to be a key selling point.
We have, but not in this particular context, Bill, because that's really more a function of product choice. But yes, that is being discussed very significantly with Barney and his team, and we could talk about that more in a minute. So next slide. So there would be two really kind of consultation components in this assessment process. One would be with the Chancellor's Office leadership, and so they would, the Huron would sit down with these folks and probably others from the Chancellor's Office and say, what is it that you need to know from this? And ROI might be one of those components, Bill. But I think we've got that covered in another part of this process. But they would sit down and have at least one session with each of these folks to say, what do you need to know? What do you need to understand? You know, what from the field would be helpful in you crafting a supportable proposal, budget change proposal that could go into the budget process at some point in the not too distant future. So that's a big part of kind of getting the context straight. Going on to the next slide, then we would, or more importantly, the Chancellor's Office would work to recruit 7 or 8 sample districts, and we'll show you a sample, a proposed list in 1 second. And the Huron team would meet over a period of 7 or 8 weeks for about 25 hours, give or take, and work with students, with faculty, with staff, with functional area leadership, with IT area leadership, and really help try to nail down what do they think the challenges would be from getting from wherever they are today to a shared system or a common ERP offering from the state. What would that look like? Where do they think their challenges are? Where do they think they're ready? Where do they think people need more convincing? Whatever the case may be, that would be part of the workshopping process that Huron would do with a set of sample districts. So if we can go on to the next slide, I think we've actually got the proposed, oh, I'm sorry, this is the characteristics of selecting the sample district. So I think Huron did a really good job, and I know Barney and the TAP team had some very significant input into what these characteristics would be, but really trying to make sure that doing this with 7 or 8 districts as a representative sample would in fact be representative of the system as a whole. So you can see on the screen there, these are all the various characteristics that were considered in creating the proposed list of sample districts, which I believe is the next slide. Yes, here it is. So here is a list of 7 districts, and in some cases when they're multi-college districts, one college from that district has been specified as the college that with which Huron would engage. And the reason for that is that oftentimes the most significant change management challenges are at the college level as opposed to the district level. Now, that's not to say that the district perspective would not be considered in the assessment, but really and truly the biggest changes that are going to need to be made are probably going to have the most significant impact on college level stakeholders. So you can see here we've got a mix of banner schools, colleague schools, PeopleSoft. If you're not familiar with the PeopleSoft world or the Oracle world, Campus Solutions is the name of that student product. You've got LA, who has Campus Solutions for student, but has SAP for HR and finance. And you've got Los Rios that uses the entire Oracle suite. We've got some multi-college, some single college districts. We've got districts covering the entire geography of the state. We've got small, large, medium-sized colleges. We've got colleges that are small, rural, remote. We've got large suburban or urban colleges. I think, you know, we've got various graduation rates, various Pell rates, various staff counts, budget diversity. I think they've really done a pretty good job of assembling a proposed group of colleges and districts that could be accurately representative of the system for the purposes of designing the change management process and roadmap and figuring out what it would cost to do that. So we haven't reached out to these colleges yet. I think Barney's intention is to, first of all, get the endorsement of TTAC. And Barney, if I misspeak, just kick me under the table virtually. But to get the endorsement of TTAC and to, and then with this group's endorsement, then present it to the other leadership, Barney's other leadership colleagues in the Chancellor's office, such as Shenny and Marty and Daisy and anybody else whose name ends with an E sound. And with their endorsement, then begin the process of approaching these districts and asking for their commitment to participate in the assessment. We think it's a relatively light commitment for these districts, but you know, there's a lot of people are under a lot of pressure these days with pandemic response, and you know, we need to be sensitive to that. So next slide. I think that is the end. So yeah. So there you go. So question in the chat.
Yeah, and I didn't want to interrupt you, Joe.
Add a college with a homegrown system. That's a really good question, and there aren't very many.
Yeah,
I think
we're one of them in Santa
Monterey
Monica.
Peninsula.
Santa Monica College.
Yeah, Santa Monica, Monterey Peninsula, and Santa Rosa, I think are, and maybe South Orange. Yeah, there might be four, but yeah.
Joe and Gary, we talked about this the other day.
That's a good point. Well, let's make a note of that.
Yep.
That we probably would, you know, make room for something like this. We can't go too much further beyond this, simply because, you know, as Joe was indicating, I do have to seek out the approval from my peers, my colleagues, both from the Workforce and Economic and then from the Educational Services, and then ultimately our Deputy Chancellor. In terms of how we pay for this, I think, and I don't quote me, but I think the Chancellor's office would fund this, because I've had conversations previously, because I knew we were working on this, and I've had conversations previously with both my grant monitors, specifically Gary Bird, and I've had conversations with both Marty and Shenny Weber, alluding to what was coming down the pipe. So and even my boss, the Deputy Chancellor, Dr. Gonzalez, I have had a conversation with her as well too, just to give her a heads up that we have got to make an effort going forward, especially in light of the synchronous and the mode that we're in. But more importantly, we got to start doing things differently. We really need to start doing things differently around the use of our data. You know, I know, Bill, you were talking about what are we doing? How are we doing? How are we fostering the use of data? How are we building those students in mind? This is one of those efforts. We have got to make a change from a technology perspective, especially around data and how data is used and accessed and stored. We've got to make a change. We have got to make a change. So I'm hoping that this report, and that they buy off on it, and then I'm hoping that the report in and of itself will yield thumbs up from the chancellor to say, go forth. Now, I do want to be clear that it's going to happen overnight. We do have to account for the budget crisis that we are faced with. So bear that thought in mind, but it's one step at a time. Let's get through this first process.
Thank you, Barney. I think I saw Robert's hand up. Robert, did you still have a question, or did you get it answered with what he said?
No, I looked it up.
Okay.
I was just wondering how recent the spreadsheet, the chart was with the information on the campuses.
Oh, that was as of this.
Yeah, that's the most current iPads data.
Yeah.
Barney, didn't you also say that you've been receiving direct inquiries from the legislative analyst's office saying, hey, are you guys doing something like this?
That's a good point, Joe. And I have had conversations where they're asking, what are we doing around common platforms, common systems, common, what things that are common to everybody. And specifically, they even asked me about ERPs. And I said, you're preaching to the choir. Trust me, you're preaching to the choir.
Yeah.
You know, let me add something. That's a really good point.
That would indicate they'd be receptive to a proposal.
Yeah. But
go ahead, Gary.
I was going to say, just let me add to this, because we do have so many new people in this committee that there's a lot of background they might not have. So I'm going to offer Joe and Fred, myself, and Barney up. Reach out to one of us if you want a lot more background on what we're doing. Obviously, it was shared at the beginning, but not only are Coast, Foothill, De Anza, and Kern in this, but Pasadena and West Valley Mission. West Valley Mission just joined our group on this solution for about 2 months ago. Reach out to us. We'll be glad to share some information with you so you can get a better vision of what this might look like for those that haven't been here the last year or two when we've been sharing this with TTAC.
So, Joe, I have a question. Joe, I have a question.
Bill. Go for it.
So did you ask Huron to look at any other states who have gone through this process that might be comparable? Texas, Virginia,
Colorado,
Pennsylvania,
SUNY.
Yeah, they in a sense we did, yes. That was one of the reasons why we reached out to Huron, Bill, is because they actually do have experience in doing this in other states, albeit those states are way smaller than our system alone. But they are working in a variety of states right now. They do have experience with this, so they do have a model that they can bring to bear on doing the analysis of our system. So that was another important point, is that they bring that experience to this engagement.
It would be useful to have some lessons learned. Colorado, New York.
I feel certain that whatever roadmap that they would provide would incorporate those, because I mean, we have really said, look, we're not the first state to think of this, so why shouldn't we benefit from those that have gone before us? It's all taxpayer money.
Good, thanks.
Good point,
so,
Bill.
So I did want to, yeah, and Barney, if it's okay with you, I did want to respond very briefly to Bill's other question about return on investment.
Oh yeah.
Because we are working. we are working to figure out, what would the total cost of ownership be for moving to a system like this. And a big component of that is ROI. But we want to make sure that we can connect the ROI directly to the vision for success, so that we can say the vision for success says that we will do this. This is how investing in a common system will achieve that, or help achieve that goal. And here are both the potential savings and the potential increases in revenue. So because there are, particularly under the student-centered funding formula, there are opportunities for increasing revenue for colleges and districts. So nailing that down and coming up with a defensible estimate of what that might look like is certainly no trivial task. And it is coming along very nicely. Not quite ready for public distribution yet, but absolutely, Bill, that is on the agenda and an important part of the conversation. And we're getting very, very good feedback from Barney and his team about how to better articulate that, how to better align it with Vision for Success, how to talk about it in non-technical terms that really resonate with all sorts of leaders, both at the college and district level, as well as the chancellor's office and state level. So that is coming soon.
Yeah, and Joe, let me tailgate on that a little bit, because I don't want to understate the value that our 4CIS group has experienced in our return on investment and the things we've been able to do in terms of our microcosm as a test case. So I think that should be part of the basis of what we're talking about in terms of RTO.
Yeah, it's been my experience too at Mount SAC that technology, innovation, and solutions have enabled us to succeed in a number of areas, particularly in the student-centered funding formula.
Absolutely.
Excellent point, Gary and Bill.
Tim Killingstad, I see your hand up.
There was a point that I had brought up a long time ago when we started talking about this. There are systems that are unique to DSP&S, student accessibility services, whatever your college chooses to call it, that are embedded against or with these ERPs. They're having to carry student information back and forth for students with disabilities. There's a very small handful of the programs that are being employed by the colleges, but they have to directly interface with whatever ERP we decide to go with. I want to say they're like HR and they're like the other programs, but they're not on the list as far as being considered as part of the puzzle. And I'm asking whether or not they should be or could be included in that part of the puzzle, because it all has to do with DSPS MIS reporting.
Yeah. So the answer to that, Tim, is yes, those are absolutely being considered, not in the context of this engagement, however. So just to be clear, this is really not about product choice or product engineering or product migration. This is really about change management, business process re-engineering, institutional culture shift, workforce transformation, a whole variety of things, regardless of what the product choice is. But as we have, to answer your question directly, Tim, as we have been talking about how do we begin to put some meat on the bones of the product cost piece of this, one of the big pieces of that conversation is we know that every district in the state, regardless of size, location, whatever, has dozens of integrations, and things like Clockworks and a whole variety of other things that impact many students, but certainly the disabled student community. And remarkably, of those dozens of integrations, many of them are similar across our system. And so I think as we look at product options, that will be a requirement to say, you've got to bring all these integrations along with you to whatever the offering would be from the state, or it will be of limited value to each of the districts or colleges that may be interested. So that is being considered, but not part of this engagement.
Well, you're right, Joe, but there's the other side of that coin. As we look at vendors that have solutions to our problems, the first question is, will it integrate with Banner? The system question for all of the colleges is, will it integrate with our 5 different ERPs? If we have a system ERP, then there's only one question to ask them. Do you want to do business in California?
Exactly right, Bill.
Yeah.
Yep.
Exactly right. That's key.
Yep.
Spot on.
Are there any other questions for the rest of the committee? If not, I know Alex is holding a couple questions that he can bring up for us. Alex, you want to go for that?
Yeah, do you want to give Michael a chance to share what he wanted to share, Cheryl?
I can. I think Michael's question is moving back towards the goals and talking about the proposed goal number 10. If we want to insert that quickly now, or we can wait a few minutes and do that.
No, sure. Why don't we have give Michael a chance, then I'll address the questions.
Michael, you want to go ahead and
Sure. And I didn't know if this was the right committee or if it's the distance ed committee, but really looking at the barriers that students have with technology in the current remote environment. So students may not have access to Wi-Fi or access to technology, and ways that colleges can support them. And so I know different colleges are doing a lot of different things, but even now the ordering of things such as Chromebooks have been, since the majority of higher education institutions have been ordering, they've been put on backlog. And so colleges have been, helping each other out and selling equipment to each other and those kinds of things to help out other districts. So I didn't know if there was a survey that's done on the challenges that students are having within the system, and maybe some of the most effective practices that we can share with our sister colleges, while we're in this remote environment.
That's a great point.
Appreciate you.
Great question, actually. And I know that we, in fact, if Tim is still on the phone, he might be able to respond to some of this as well too, because we have done a survey in terms of technology needs, which brings me to the point that my point that I pose out to the TTAC members and the representatives of the colleges. What are the colleges doing in terms of opening up Wi-Fi access to the students? How is that being done? Is it being done? Is it being done for even the local or adjacent communities? It doesn't have to be answered here, but Michael, to your point, what are we doing and what can we be done? I'm of the opinion that, if the campuses have that opportunity to open up the Wi-Fi to the students where they can come and sit in the parking lot, where they can put up a tent, the restaurants are doing it.
Yeah. Why
can't the colleges do it, right? But again, I can't address what the colleges can or cannot do. Taking point Lassen, where Cheryl comes from, it might be extremely difficult for that team out there to basically pop up a tent and say, come and use our Wi-Fi, for your Zoom sessions, et cetera.
Yeah.
But, I think that's something that should be considered from a statewide perspective on what we can help the students further.
So, I'm willing to work with the CSSOs and kind of identify, and also the CIOs to identify some of the challenges, and then perhaps look at ways that, innovative ways in what some of the colleges are doing, so that others don't have to reinvent the wheel, or they may be able to utilize some of that information. So I sent Cheryl a PM and just told her that I'd be willing to do that, and if anyone else on the committee is willing to help out with that. But I think right now, because as we're in the remote environment, there are new challenges that come up that we're finding. Some students may not have access to more of the expensive technology in some of our programs, and how do we provide that for them? So I told her that's something I'm willing to do. But
and I think as well too, College ICE program has the CalConnect solution, which offers hotspots. We did put out a memo back in July around what's available and what's out there. We're also looking at I had a conversation yesterday with our chancellor, the governor's office, and the K-12 superintendent around low-cost internet options. Are they viable? And they come with hotspots? Do they come with Chromebooks as well too? So we're trying, again, this is organic in nature, and we are constantly trying to figure out how to make things better for our environment.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Barney.
just to add to.
This is a question we can ask of DTAC to consider well, the Distance Education and Educational Technology Advisory Committee, just in terms of the distance ed component and the student point of contact. Just a thought that they could wrestle with it as well.
But there's a lot of interesting solutions out there. We have, in 3 of our divisions, we have firewalled server banks that have that specialized software from everything to fashion design to chemistry. And when we loan out the laptops, we install the virtual network connections so students can log into that software on our servers into college instead of having that expense to be done. We've been actually working on that quite a bit before the pandemic, but it's a lifesaver to keep those high tech programs being on target and have students really have true accessibility to that high-end software.
Thanks, Bill. All right, Michael, again, thank you for raising that. And I'll reach out to the chairs of DTAC and ask the question to them and see if they're doing any work about it, and then can share information back as well. And I'll offer you up as willing to participate if they need some CSSA input.
Sure. Yeah, just let me know.
Well, when you say offering up, Cheryl, it has that sort of sacrificial aspect to it, right? All right, great. And so what I heard, Michael, I'm clear when we review the notes later on. What I'm hearing is that for that 10th addition to our commitments, we're talking about also maybe adding a aspect of that to that about Wi-Fi or access or that kind of thing. And so we'll include that in our thinking as we review the notes and from the Chancellor's Office side. Okay, so we did get some questions from TTAC members that were, they weren't really proposals for agenda items, but rather questions about things that, that we could address in the meeting. So I thought if we had time, maybe at least one of them we could answer, and then maybe we could answer more of them at the next meeting. But one of the first ones we got was on cybersecurity. And it seems like the attacks are not just very frequent, which isn't a new thing, but they're very imaginative and hard to keep up with. It would be nice to have an update on what we're doing. And so I thought there's a lot of people on the call that could answer that, but I thought I would toss that to Stefan Heath, my fellow TAP member, who's our information security expert. So Stefan, if you could maybe address that.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that we are really seeing right now, and I'll speak to, there's no question that cyber attacks are imaginative in what they're doing, but the ones that we're seeing right now aren't particularly imaginative. They tie back to a lot of best practices and a lot of focus on, honestly, some more basic level things that we're seeing. And, again, it's never about, it's always about good intentions of where people are at, but sometimes things tend to slip through. So what we've been working on right now is a couple different things. I've been working very closely with Amir over at the Tech Center, my counterpart over there. And we're really working on 2 things to focus on those best practices and closing the easy holes that might be out there. And one of them, Amir, who's in the trenches working with a lot of the colleges who have seen some incidents recently, is putting together some putting together a white paper focusing on some of those items and trying to get us a little bit more information on some of the technical tools and things that are out there that would be able to be leveraged to help in some of these cases. And then I'm also working with him to put together a webinar that we're hoping to host sometime in early October or early to mid-October, honestly. And a lot of that is going to be focusing on, really who are the bad actors, what are the best practices that you need to be doing to lock things down, and really focus on some actionable information that people can take away and hopefully do that aren't high cost items. There's obviously other initiatives that we have that tie into other things, like we would love to be able to get the Okta solution that we've talked about here before, be able to get that through as part of a common infrastructure for single sign-on and two-factor and everything that we could have across the system, something like that. Obviously, those are the things that we continue to work on, but we really wanted to do something that could help stem the tide in the short term. And so this is, Amir and I have been working on that quite a bit.
And just to dovetail upon that, as Stefan indicated, we've had and Tim can attest to this as well too, we've had some ransomware attacks, and they're on the rise. So what I asked for was to basically put together a webinar and some information going forward around low cost, low solution, minimal solution efforts on some best practices. Some of the colleges may not have all the nice, pretty, fancy tools to be able to do certain things, but I think there are other ways to help address this. Take, for instance, two-factor authentication. You can stand up a certificate of authority server in a matter of minutes, and that does meet the two-factor model, the two-factor authentication model, by deploying a certificate to devices and or to other types of devices. So these are the kind of things that we want to cover in the webinar in hopes to be able to help mitigate. Additionally, I'm also been collaborating with Tim, and we're going to basically do another email. I'm going to send out another email going forward to the CEOs, the CIOs, which meaning on the IT side, around best practices and around the spam filtering efforts that we are doing. We're doubling down, and I quote Tim, we're doubling down on our efforts on spam filtering around, especially as it relates to the fraudulent email addresses that we see a lot of fraudulent email addresses coming through. So we're looking at this comprehensively. I just want to comment on that.
Thank you both, Stefan and Barney. Let's go ahead and just looking at time and knowing that it's nice to be able to give folks a time to transition in case you have a 12 o'clock. So let's go ahead and go to next steps. And again, this Bill, you and I, but Barney or Alex or any of the guys who want to add in next steps certainly can speak up on this one.
From a next steps perspective is, I know we kind of left off, and I want to digress just for a moment on the Huron proposal. Next steps, I would need to make sure that from the TTAC committee perspective, if everybody is in agreement on this, then I want to take it forward to my leadership, my colleagues, and then my leadership to further vet it and to get buy-off, both from a financial and paying for this effort with the Huron folks and moving forward with this.
So let's go ahead and ask of the committee if you're in support of moving that Huron proposal forward. Let's get a thumbs up, either using the reaction or giving us a visual thumbs up. And we'll scroll through and see if we have. And if you have any concerns or doubts about it, let's surface that quickly. Otherwise, I'm seeing lots of thumbs.
Awesome.
Okay. And then JC, I saw your hand was up earlier as we started into the last section, so I want to loop back to you and give you a chance. Sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. I just posted it on the chat. So the foundation has started a digital access program for the community colleges. It was as a result of the pandemic. We've always known that the data has always pointed to about 20% of our student population not having any digital access. That was further inflamed by this pandemic. So we had about 250,000 students who did not have access to internet or Chromebooks or both. So they were considered underconnected by the state. And we partnered with about 12 community colleges in making sure that the supply chain was present during that time and in securing 50,000 Chromebooks for our students, and also providing 10,000 Wi-Fi hotspots to our students during that time. So I would be happy to participate in any conversations and support any efforts out there to make sure our students continue with their education.
Thank you, JC. Really appreciate that information. All right, other next steps. So Barney, are you feeling good that we had enough thumbs to say that it's time to move this idea forward and you can take it to leadership at the Chancellor's office?
100%. Awesome. Thank you, Cheryl, thank you, everybody. Thank you.
You bet. Thank you. And thanks for the team that's been doing the work on that in the background, not just recently, but this really goes back a couple of years at least for conversations.
It does.
It's an exciting possibility, even if it's still a ways off. As we get ready to close, I just want to say I appreciate everybody joining us. Again, lots of new members, so it's an interesting committee to become a part of. I hope that we did a decent enough job of trying to define acronyms and different terms and projects as we went. This is really kind of an abbreviated meeting, but our first of the year, so hopefully it was helpful in giving you kind of an overview on the work of the Chancellor's Office as it connects to the advisory role that we play as a committee. We, as was mentioned, we meet 3 to 4 times in a year. And so our next one will be, I think, January. And so we'll aim to start getting that scheduled once Barney and Bill and I check our schedules and find some possibilities in common. Bill, you want to have other comments to close?
Yeah, I'd just like to point out to our representative groups here in particular, to be sure you get on the agenda of your organizations and both provide feedback from what you've heard today and also engage in the issues that your group would like to bring to TTAC. As you can tell, we have in Vice Chancellor Barney Gomez a very collaborative, transparent leader. And he, as you can tell from the kind of support he has among his staff, he has expertise and advocacy that actually makes things happen. So this is not one of those committees that are seat warmers. We are workers. And as Barney pointed out, you'll be looking to those on this committee and others with whom you have contact to create work groups on priorities. One of them that really emerged today was the critical nature of data governance, to have the data lake and data warehouse work go forward. The very interesting emergence of our Chancellor's Office being involved in the state effort on the continuity of information from cradle to a career. And we look forward to being able to influence huge efforts like that. So Barney, don't hesitate to ask us for special progress or work groups as you go forward with these hot-breaking ideas.
Absolutely, Bill. Thank you. Thank you for the team and the support from you guys, and you, Bill, and Cheryl, and the rest of the team. Truly, this is not a one-man show or a one office show. It takes all of us to basically move things forward, and it takes all of us to help make a difference for what we're trying to do and moving forward. As you can see, I'm not giving up, especially on the single sign-on, the ERP, some of these hot efforts that are common across to us. I have not given up.
Thank you, Barney. Robert, I see your hand up, and then JC if it's a new hand up. Go for it, Robert.
Yes, I was just wondering, the information that's discussed in this committee, is any of it privy to moving outside of this circle or outside of the constituencies that are represented here? For instance, the proposed scope for shared technology platforms, is that widely known? Is that something that we shouldn't discuss outside of this committee?
That's a good point, Robert. I will say that from Executive Vice Chancellor Marty Alvarado, her and I often, again, in her and the workforce economic development side, we are constantly in collaboration, especially as it relates to technology and efforts going forward around technology, because as we all know, without the use of technology, we can't facilitate business. But from her perspective, she keeps telling me that both the CISSOs, the CEOs, I believe she mentioned, the CBOs, these work groups that she constantly is engaged with, they're constantly asking around, what are we doing around a common data platform? They may not mention ERP, but they refer to a common data platform. So by all means, whatever we can do to help advocate and to streamline our processes, I don't see this as an issue to talk amongst your colleagues, your peers at the campus, at the local level, because I mean, as I said earlier, we have got to start doing something differently, things differently around around technology. So I personally don't see it. I can't, again, I want to be clear, I can't guarantee anything. I'm at the mercy of our budget and what we have available to us. We're at the mercy of the state budget. We are a system and we are a state system office. So we get the Prop 98. We also have general fund. We are at the mercy of the state in the condition that we are in with the budget crises. But it doesn't mean that we can't collaborate amongst each other to help see what we can do to make things happen.
Yeah, thank you, Barney. And Robert, I think too, so much of what we've talked about, absolutely take back to the representative groups as well as to your local colleges. It's, you know, work that's being done or work that we would like to do in the future as a system. And so the more folks know about that, the less they can be caught off guard or surprised. And so input is important along the way. So yeah, we rarely have something that we would consider confidential in these meetings. I'm thinking back to my couple of years, and I don't think it has. All of this is consumable by our colleagues.
Thank you.
Good point, Cheryl.
Any other closing comments, anybody? I'll leave the floor open. Otherwise, I really appreciate the efforts of Rick in the background and Gary from the Chancellor's office, the two of you helping with the agenda and orchestrating the technology related to the meeting, and then just to all of you for spending your time with us the last couple hours and asking your questions in advance. As Alex mentioned, we only got to the one about cybersecurity, but we'll hold those questions and aim to address those in a little bit more depth with our next meeting. And then, as Barney mentioned too, if he and his staff need input before our kind of regularly scheduled time of January, then we'll look at pulling something together in advance. So with that, thank you all for attending. Thank you for your input, and have a good rest of the day.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.